Today is a really amazing day because today we are finishing a sleeve. We have Anthony here. You guys remember Anthony from some of the older videos. We're gonna be attacking the inside of his arm here to cap off the sleeve. You can see what we already have. And you guys remember the lantern. We got the girl's face. This stuff is nice and healed. Looking great, contrast looks great. So today we'll be putting an extension of the face here, the continuation of kind of this lantern idea with the hand. We'll be working it into our black and then also on the other side. And then I'm gonna show you guys some tune-ups, some things that I do to really complete the sleeve and polish the whole things. Things like transition pieces, re-hitting blacks on other areas. I want him to be able to leave tomorrow completed. So let's get into it. We'll lay a stencil and start talking about how to finish the sleeve off. All right, so I'm placing the stencil in this final spot. Whenever I'm doing this, I mean anytime, but especially with finishing a sleeve where it's like a very selective spot, I'm aware of my surroundings, meaning like the tattoos that I already have going on. So we have a lot of black here. So you can see in the face that we're doing today, on that right side, there's tons of black. So that's great, that'll lead right into it. Kind of same thing on the other side. So then I'm just gonna bring the like neck, the weird like bone structure right into the bottom, but it doesn't always line up that perfect. So that's why it's really good to do this stuff in the prep work and the design. You know, I knew that this guy would have a lot of black, so I tried to choose image for the inside that also worked with a black background. And this will just make the transition from image to image kind of seamless. So our goal now is to place the stencil with the head not touching anything so that the black background can come into the head, right? So not too difficult, but you know, this one's a little easier. Definitely things to think about. And we're gonna be trying to fill our spots, our empty spots. You can see I have that shine point in the eye when designing. You know, I saw how much black we're running into. That side of the face is very dark. The background is black. So I thought that would help break up some of the black darkness. But it is a dark sleeve, you know, it's like a dark horror sleeve. So a lot of black's cool. I like having a lot of black in the tattoos. For me, it's just easier to stencil the inner arm laying down, but we're gonna check it with him standing up to make sure it looks good. Cool, so this is looking good. We'll have our black background in here. I always favor the right side or the outer side a little bit more, because the closer we get into the inside, like this is rarely seen, unless he's laying like this. When he's standing up, it's even less. Like you're really just seeing, you know, this side of the face. So I'm trying to favor this, like we're putting the cool stuff here, the shine point. So yeah, this, you know, we want to put good tattooing in here, clean, you know, but maybe not important subject matter in this kind of strip, because it tends to get lost, at least, you know, when someone's standing up or at rest. So I do kind of favor this side a little bit more. You know, if you have a face to the side, you have him facing out, you don't want him running away. But this is looking great to me. You know, the black background is gonna put a tremendous amount of focus on the face, which is what I want. I'm just gonna bring this right down into the hand and we should be good to go. So this will be a, you know, a 2-day completion piece. But I'm gonna walk you guys through a bunch of key steps on finishing this sleeve. We see that this tattoo is running into our old tattoo. You know, this is kind of gonna be a theme with completing the sleeve. Obviously, we're not gonna tattoo over, we're gonna go behind, but some of these areas are really light. You know, with practice and whatever, you avoid no problem, but you really wanna keep an eye on the old tattoo to make sure you don't go over it. Sometimes it can be helpful to just kind of wash away the excess areas so you don't have to think about it too much. You can also draw a line with a marker where it ends, but since a lot of this is like background and texture and detail that I'll make up, I don't mind just wiping away a lot of the stencils so I can see this hand, I can see these light lines that I left behind. But cool, so there, everything is gonna, all the new stuff is gonna go behind the tattoo. But you can just kind of do it clean like that. There's some things that I'm paying attention to with this. Let me point them out to you. So, first things first, here's very dark. So this stuff, if I make it dark, this will disappear. So I'm probably gonna have this area here and here lighter than this. So this remains, you know, in the forefront. But then over here, we have all this like light kind of hair coming off the arm. So all this stuff will probably be darker so that pops more, you know? Same thing, the hand's light, so we can kind of go dark here. And then, you know, black, so then all that'll be dark as well because it'll just blend in. So it's, you know, it's good to see these things before you approach them to kind of have like a plan, you know, so you don't have to be thinking while you're doing it. This is pretty simple, you know, light, a little darker as it comes up, dark, so that the hand looks like it's sticking forward, and then black background. So let's get into it. Anthony, you feeling good?
Feel great.
Ready to start?
Let's do it.
So I'm going to be flicking up right from this hand. I'm going to kind of draw a little line where the hand is. And then the darker I make this image, the more the hand is going to pop out. So I can kind of control how much I want it to pop out based on how dark I make this. I think it's cool to have things obviously visible in the forefront and background. Kind of makes that piece look dynamic, you know, like a lot of depth, a lot of things coming towards you. So even when I start to lay in these base layers, you can already see it shaping the hand. So we have a lot of this like neck and shoulder developed, and you can see how it meets the hand. We did it nice and dark so that the hand, which is nice and light on the top, really pops out and looks like it's coming forward. So I love that transition. I think it looks good, and we're gonna try to accomplish this throughout the piece. Now I'm just doing these like textures and this like weird like muscle vein kind of neck thing we got going on, which has just been very fun. So this is about as far as we got today. We made some really nice progress. We'll come in tomorrow and finish this top area up, and then obviously the sides. You can see we brought this darkness right into this hand. It really makes it pop nice with this negative space. Really, I just ran in the texture, and then once I had the texture in and the shapes, I just flicked off of the hand to create a really nice defining line. And then we talked about earlier keeping this side lighter. So as these come down, we hold the same, you know, kind of textures and shapes. We did it lighter though. So these thorns still stick out nice. So tomorrow's gonna be a pretty easy day for me, not for him. And we're gonna finish the top here, black out the sides, bring it in, and bring this face out. So per usual on the back-to-backs, I'm going to wrap this in the pad so that it soaks up all the excess ink and, you know, body fluid to not mess up the stencil. We'll come in tomorrow and see that our stencil looks all right. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, I'm always trying to bring you the discounts. I got a new code for you, code MODEL, for the company Tay2. All your aftercare needs. Derm, sprays, soaps, they got it all. I love the product. Hopefully you guys do too. Code MODEL for 20% off. See you guys next time. We're back. It's day 2. It is the day we are finishing the sleeve. It's a great day. We made great progress. We have them wrapped up. So let's get the wrap off and see if our stencil held. So we have our pad underneath to hopefully soak up most of the liquid. The liquid is like really what ruins the stencil, makes it wipe off. So if you can keep the area dry, usually you're looking pretty good with your stencil. Nice, we're looking good. We got the stencil in there. Awesome, so the stencil looks amazing actually. It's pretty typical for me to get like a little bleed out just from like sweating and stuff like that, but this one has none of that. So it is day 2. He's gonna be a little sore. Obviously we worked on him all day yesterday, so I'm just gonna kind of give him a little Bactine bath. You can also do this with water, but it helps just kind of like hydrate the skin. The Bactine has the little bit of lidocaine in there, so that like helps. You guys have seen me do the soaks, where I just kind of soak it with some water, just to kind of prep the skin to go back in with the machine. So we're just gonna let him relax a little bit. So we're just gonna finish up the face, and then we will get into the background. So this is, just like any other tattoo. So we'll finish the face. We're getting in these wrinkles here, and we'll get all the defining characteristic points in, and leaving space for this negative shine on the eye. And then once we get the face done, I'll start working my background into the other pieces, and that's really what's gonna sleeve this thing out. Faces like this are just so fun though, just to talk a little bit about the subject matter itself. I mean, it's kind of no rules. You're just making these wrinkles everywhere. It's humanoid, but it's not like human, so you can get kind of creative on like the anatomy and how things operate on the face. I want these eyes to be like nice and dark, so we're gonna give this like crazy shadow under the brow to really make the eyes look like sunken in, But in doing so, we're just, like any other piece, we're mapping out our dark points here. A lot of times our dark points define the piece better for us, so it's nice to have those in. You can kind of start to see what it looks like. I'm just using a 3RL standard right now. But it's always fun when you get to do some negative space imagery around some really dark areas, because that negative space just becomes so crisp. It really makes it pop out. We got a lot accomplished today, so it makes me feel way more confident in today's in finishing today. Being very gentle, because we're working really close to skin that we tattooed yesterday. You can see this brow starting to form. We're gonna leak some creases into the nose here, and this bridge point, and this getting up to the brow line. Give him kind of like a scrunchy face with these. And I'm just using the 3RL. I'm trying to keep the shadow pretty consistent, because this is kind of just like a dark shape. There's not too much fade in here. We can kind of make it out with some common sense, like the top of the brow is here, so we can flick off from the top, because that's where the shadow will be casted. So you can flick down from the brow to define that a little bit more. You want to be really careful around the negative space. You might even want to slow down a little bit to make sure it's crisp. And then pretty much everything I'm working on now in this eye is set back from the rest of our face. So what does that tell us? It tells us it's going to be darker than the rest of the face, right? So we want our eyes set back, if we want them to look like they're farther away than the nose, they have to be darker than the nose. We're just going to start to, go in the direction of the shadows here, and it kind of curves. Kind of like droops down, so we're going to stay with that flow point. It droops down from the nose. And as long as we kind of shade in this direction, it's going to look good. Little eyelid here. By just flicking up, we're going to define it a little bit here. But we want to cover every inch of skin that is not the negative space, so that the negative space pops. It's just so satisfying to see it when it all comes together. That's why I love these like over characterize crazy texture faces because you're just like, whoa. You know, I made it look all weird like that. It looks like there's all these wrinkles on his face. You know, this would be like a prime candidate for Botox. So we are finally at the background, and right now I'm working the background into the other pieces, as you can see. And I just kind of wanted to talk about this with you guys for a little bit. So you can see I'm like working it in at the top here, and really what I'm doing is I'm going over the old tattoo. And when I do that, you can still see where the old tattoo is, so the goal is to like eliminate that like line going up the center, and it's just going to require some patience and just like kind of working the area. So I'm going to use a dark shade to go over everything, and then I'm going to blend it out. So if you make, you know, a dark shade into that until that line kind of disappears, and I'm fading out each side. Eventually you'll be able to pull the shade in and then push it out. And I'm just gonna keep working this pretty gentle, you know, until I achieve that result. And this is gonna get rid of that background seam and just provide a smooth transition right into it. You definitely wanna be wiping the skin well, so you can see where you're at, like with the fade. And I'm gonna definitely be crossing over into the old tattoo, but you can already see it being eliminated here. And then it starts to come back in at the bottom, so we're just gonna continue that all the way down. It's almost like you're just buffing it out. It makes it just look like one background going from one piece into the next. That's why it's always good when you're kind of starting a sleeve to like fade it out. You can see like here it's not black, you know? I mean, if it was, you could work with that. You could just be pulling your black out and fading it into the new piece. But I'm always kind of cautious to put hard edges on pieces for this exact reason. I don't want to prevent myself from doing anything in the future, because I can always go over everything and make it black if I want to. Cool, so I have the backgrounds blended with the 3RL. You can see it all right here as I was showing you guys before. Now I'm going to be using the mag to just really polish it. I started on the bottom here so you can kind of see the difference between the two, and I'm just going to walk you through it a little bit. So this is like blending in with the existing tattoos. So I'm using a 7 curve mag. You guys can use bigger mags if you want. I just prefer the small. So I'm taking black and I'm just really lightly going on the top of the skin for a few reasons. I want to build it up. I don't want to do trauma to the skin. I'm also considering that we've just hit this skin with the 3RL, so I'm not going to just like pack black in there. But it's almost like a blending tool, like for colored pencils, or like you're just sanding it out. So I'm going over what I've already done. I'm doing the same motions. I like the 7 because it easily like penetrates the skin. Sometimes the big mags you have to push a little bit harder with. And since you're working with like smaller areas, I feel like it's easier to control the tattoo. You know, you're not making like huge changes at a time, but as you can see, my ink is like very much liquid, you know, and I'm just pushing this black out, you know, from the center pretty much. I'm just gonna be very patient with this. You can already see it's forming here. It just like really smooths this out, you know, and I can control it a little bit more. It's not like just solid black. So you see I'm going over the 3RL just very lightly, almost like the same depth that I would with the 3RL, and I'm just spreading this tone out. And you can see that I have this puddle that I'm dragging along with me. I love that. I want the puddle. That's what I'm trying to get. And I'm just hitting the skin until I get the puddle. Once I get it, I'm pulling it down. I'm just going back and forth like a pendulum. You know, and I'm just pushing this around. You're probably not going to be achieving like solid black the first hit, but you really get this nice smooth shade. Now I dipped it a little bit in the water, so I'm getting a light tone as I move into this lighter area, and that's going to help with the fade. Slowing down, I was moving a little bit fast. I was getting excited telling you guys about this. Started moving fast. And you can just see like the difference. I feel like this is just kind of nicer looking with the background. But same thing, I'm staying on that center. I'm going slow, give a chance for the needles to hit. Trying to hit the skin the same every time. Nice. So you're gonna see me use this technique whenever I'm connecting with other pieces. You know, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna kind of like get the structure in with the 3RL, and then I'm just gonna smooth it out with the mag. And I feel like it just helps transition the new tattoo into the old, and you can see I'm going over some of the healed stuff just to smooth it out. It might look a little different having the fresh against the healed, but when it heals it'll look nice. So you're building up your new, and then you're just like fading it over into the old, just so there's not like a hard line. I'm using black, and I'm just dipping it once in the shading solution so that it flows nicely. It has good ink flow. Sometimes just diluting it with a little bit of water can go a long way and just make the ink a lot more friendly to work with. Alright, so we've got the one side completed. We're going to move to the other side. I have kind of these thorns coming in here, so we're going to bring the background in. We'll, finish up some thorns, get these pieces combined. So I just had him stand up real quick. I wanted to draw while he was standing up just to make sure it looked good. So I just kind of got some more thorns in there. This is a decent amount of negative space, so I thought it'd be fun to break it up with something besides just black. So we'll leave these very light, and then all in the background we'll have black and come right into the face. You can see the ear right there. Connect from this way, that way, everything will be tied together. All right, so we got our guy in. He looks beautiful, super young. We're gonna put the whites in and then the blacks, but I'm gonna be doing this in the entire sleeve. So we're gonna, we got him in, we got the blacks in. I'm gonna put the white in the eye and where it needs to go. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look back to my original references for this entire sleeve, and I'm gonna go back through all the things that are solid black and solid white and re-hit them. So let's do it. So like I said, we got the whites in, we're putting the dark, the solid blacks back in. I mean, really any time a tattoo heals, even if you pack it correctly, like it's losing a lot of ink. So to be able to go back and put in the black in the areas of the healed tattoo, in my opinion, makes a huge difference. I think this is really gonna make your sleeves and just your tattoos in general stand out from other black and gray artists that don't take the time to do this. It's gonna look more dynamic, you'll have more values, you have this extra layer of darkness. It's gonna stretch out that grayscale. Be more impressive. It won't look so flat. So I'm looking back at my reference, obviously about the places that are solid black, and I'm asking myself like, okay, cool, like how much does this area really define what's going on? And if it's really important, I mean, that's where it really needs to be. This is a chance to redefine things, make certain things pop out, bring things forward, push things back. You know, and for this, I'm using the ultra black. I like right ultra black. This is like the darkest black I have come across, so it is perfect for finishing up the tattoo with. I just want the arm to soak in like some Bactine and some soap, just relax for a little bit. We just bounce all over the entire arm, putting in solid, you know, packed black and white. So we're gonna let it chill, you know, 10, 15 minutes. So that when we wipe it, the skin can be calmed down. We can see the black, we can see the white. Because a lot of times this is kind of the final attempt at making sure everything is perfect on the sleeve. So we don't want to rush this part. You know, if we're going to take the time to go back into the black and make sure it's solid, let's make sure it's solid. So we'll let this sit for 15 minutes. We'll come back and we'll take a look at the sleeve. So we're finally finished. It has been a long journey. Anthony put the effort in, you know, multiple how many sessions was this one? 6?
This is 6, yeah.
6 sessions. Actually, that's pretty average. We got a lot accomplished, especially with all the black. I want you guys to take a look. You can see throughout the sleeve, you know, we hit the different areas of black and whites. You know, a lot of times we're looking at eyes or like eyeliner, nostrils, areas in the mouth, separated some of the thorns a little bit more. Things that I felt maybe washed out a little bit, needed a little bit more definition or separation. We went back into those things. We added, you know, the black where necessary. We added the white. And it's looking, you know, you can tell a little bit what is fresh and what is healed, but it's gonna make all the difference in the final product, you know, meaning the healed version of the sleeve. We all like to put focus on the fresh versions and the cool pictures online, and that's great. But what about the rest of the time with the tattoo, which is really the majority of the life of the tattoo? And I feel like just taking that extra hour or two at the end to clean everything up, redefined. You know, arm's a big area. You know, we can have some damage, some scarring, like pieces can fall out, you know. It's rare that we get an absolutely perfect heal, so to just take that time, go back in with the blacks and the white, I think it's really gonna step up your tattoo game and separate you from a lot of people that don't do that, or maybe are too lazy to do that. But let's take a look at the final product. Let's get some pictures, video. I love this thing. Hitting the blacks and the whites at the end, again, is something I only started to do recently. It was pointed out by a friend a few years ago. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you do or if you see benefit from this in your tattoos. I'm so happy you guys got to see a few episodes of Anthony and myself building this sleeves. If you're just joining us on the channel, definitely check out our previous episodes where Anthony is a wonderful model for us starting this sleeve. And we pretty much documented the whole progression of this sleeve, and now you guys made it to the final product. I hope you enjoyed.